is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management and staff of Guardian Radio.
Good morning and welcome to Guardian Radio AM. Today is Wednesday, July 9th, and it's a little after 11 o'clock, and I shall be your host for today. Today, actually, I'm supposed to have some guests. I'm hoping that they come up shortly. We should have representative from the Holy Hill, St. Anne's, and they having a function that they want to give some details on. But the theme of today is revolution. Are we Bahamians prepare to facilitate a revolution? The other day we had a conversation where some callers call defensive, suggesting that the Bahamas is a plantation. We didn't actually get a definition of what they meant by the Bahamas being a plantation. And if it is a plantation, what is the irkness of it? Why people get so offended by the term? Plantation economics, my definition, basically suggests that our works, our efforts, our energy, the results of our work is for someone else's benefit. So when you see here Bahamians use the term, we are living on a plantation, it suggests that we are moving forward. However, all of our energies are being used for someone else's benefit. So that's the definition. When Erin Green comes back from downstairs, she perhaps may have a different definition of plantation. As we prepare for St. Anne's to come and give their synopsis of their planned event, the conversation today is about what can we do to get off this plantation. Why people are using the term plantation as a crutch every time they complain. We had a caller the other day saying we are not an independent state. Yeah, that's what he said. We are not an independent state in that we depend on other entities in order to survive, right? And I challenged that, saying even though we are an interdependent country, like every other country, depending on other countries to move forward, we are definitely a sovereign country making decisions for ourselves, right? And we are no longer a part of that colonial state where all of our energies and all our energies that we exert benefits the crown. They mentioned that, oh yes, we do the swearing ceremonies and all these ceremonies and swear to the queen and the king and whatever it is, that clearly we're not independent. And I said, but all our decisions are made for us, by us. Recently, of Barbados, Mia Motley, mentioned, she always giving good speeches. I'm not necessarily sure if they benefit the Bahamas per se, but benefit where she's at. But of course, Bahamians continue to cheer her on and say she's brilliant. Says that perhaps as we march away from this plantation state, and we all, of course, we having this all juxtaposed to our 52nd anniversary of independence here. She said, as we move away from these plantation models, where all of our efforts were being used for the benefit of other people, we, the Caribbean, must move toward making our final court being the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice. There are a number of Bahamians, and rightly so, believe that the Privy Council is a colonial mindset, right? And that we need to move away from it. I countered that by saying that nothing's wrong with that, but then the Bahamas should be the final court, the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal and go back to the Supreme Court. And those same people who cry that, yes, we need to move away from the Privy Council. So no, we don't want Bahamians to be the final say. We don't mind, however, the Caribbean people to be our final court, as this will be marking our independence, right? There are a number of people who called the other day and said that we need to move away from our constitutional democracy and move to a system of a republic. And I'm not sure if Bahamians understand what a republic is. I'm not sure that because they are frustrated in terms of their participatory efforts, and that's why they say a republic system is where we should be moving toward. And this is where our conversation will be geared today in terms of, are we prepared for a revolution? There have been only two Caribbean countries or countries in our region that had a revolution of merit. And I want to know if Bahamians are prepared to put their shoulders to the wheel and follow them. Those two countries are the Republic of Haiti, right? Because you know of their Haitian Revolution, and of course the Republic of Cuba. And I want to know if Bahamians are prepared to follow suit and face the consequences when they call revolution, when they call anarchy, when they call that they no longer want to be on this plantation to set the entire system ablaze and replace it with nothing. That is our conversation as we march towards independence, our 52nd celebration of being an independent state, no longer a colonized concept. But before all of that, we finally have our guest in studio, right? Move the mic a little closer to your mouth, right? And you formally introduce yourself, because I say big things are happening on top of the Holy Hill, and you're here to give some detail on what is happening and invite the public to your function. Yes. So formally introduce yourself.
Good morning, all. My name is, and I am a member of the Most Holy Trinity Anglican Church Women. And as Mr. Newry was saying, we're here to promote our flea market sale that's going to take place on Saturday, the 12th of July, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 1 p.m. Well, persons may be asking themselves, well, what makes this so different from any other flea market sale? I think Mr. Newry can attest to it because he attended the last one that we had. What we try to do at Holy Trinity with our flea market sale is to give the shopper a real dignified experience, because, sometimes there's this perception that, if you're buying used goods, it can, the way that it's marketed, the way it looks and everything, it could make you feel a little scrappy. So we want to do away with that scrappy mentality, and we want to give the shopper an experience, a real nice thrift experience. We have our activity center all fitted out. You may mistake yourself, for being in Ross or Marshalls or one of those, or just beneath that. But the whole thing is, just to really address, well, on the first hand, this whole ideology that we have in the Bahamas, we have a lot of wastage, you know what I mean? And one man's trash is another man's treasure.
My wife say repurpose.
Repurpose is the good
And I'm glad you're here, because you corrected my narrative, because I realized it's Holy Trinity and did not say Holy Trinity. So I'm glad you're telling me that it's Holy Trinity.
Yes.
Remind the listening audience where Holy Trinity is.
Yes.
So we start from there.
Okay, very well. So Holy Trinity is located in Trinity Way, Stapleton Gardens. I think most persons are familiar with the Stapleton Gardens area. We have an activity center that a lot of people are aware of. We host weddings and other functions there. If you are uncertain about exactly where to find it, you can check out our Facebook page that has the information on it. Just type in Holy Trinity, the Most Holy Trinity Church, and it will bring us up, and it will give you all the information you need. It will always also have a flyer on it of the flea market sale with the date and details, the items that we're having. We're having plants, not just clothing and household items. We had a lot of plants last time. We're hoping to have plants again. this time. But yes, Holy Trinity Church is a very dynamic church. It is described as a younger church in the scheme of things, but we're just excited down at Holy Trinity, and our flea market sale and ACW is one of our expressions of this excitement.
Yes, and I did attend the last one. It was a huge event. The entire auditorium, what do you call that?
Activity center.
Activity center was booked out in terms of they had tables galore, they had shelves galore, they had so much things to select,
Yes.
right? And these were high-end items, though. And when I say high-end items, when you should go to thrift stores, you say, "Oh, okay, I'm using someone else." These seemed new.
Yes, this is sort of like the new thrift experience, and what it was really born out of is this idea. Like, Bahamians are fortunate. I don't think we realize how fortunate we are, and we accumulate a lot of stuff. And we found that when we made the call for persons to donate items, were brand new. So it was very interesting to see or to get that confirmation of how much we take things for granted. But this is also a way to sort of take that what we would ordinarily term as wastage and convert that into something useful. And so what we do is we use the monies that we raise from the sale to do other initiatives that we have. Those of you who are aware of the Anglican Church Women, we do a lot of ministry in the community. One of the things that we did last year with the proceeds, sort of as a closeout to the event, is we invited one of the local I don't want to call it orphanages, but
Homes.
one of the homes came in, and the children had a wonderful experience. They were able to go, through the different, because we had toys, it was really, really nice. And so they were able to just take whatever they wanted. It was like Christmas had come in the middle of
Holy
July.
Trinity is very kids friendly.
Yes, it is.
I mean, you all have a lot of activities for children, teenagers, and young adults. I mean, you go there for activities.
For everyone. We love
And
our
the Sunday
youth.
school thing is
Yes,
huge.
Yes, the
I
Sunday
just want to
school
mention
is
that.
pretty-
When you go there,
yes.
you have your kids to
Shout out to Dr. Yasmin Robinson, who is our superintendent, but and then Lon and Samantha, they run our youth group that's on a Friday. I think it's at 6:30. But there are lots of other programs there, but it's all born out of the need to contribute, because a lot of people tend to have this perception that Christianity or the church is that's just they're sitting on their high horse waiting to judge people. But we want to dispel that notion and to let them know that all are welcome. Children, older, everyone.
So when is your event again? Exact date and time.
So the date of our flea market sale is this coming Saturday.
This Saturday coming?
Yes, which is
Okay.
July the 12th, and we start at 6 a.m. and we end
6 a.m. in the morning?
That is correct. Apparently, that is the time that shoppers who are serious about, flea
It'll be
market
dark
sales-
at 6 though. At 6 it'll be dark.
It was dark the last time.
I mean, it was crowded.
We met people
When
there.
I went the last time, you had a huge crowd.
Yes.
I mean, every and
Yes.
anybody, especially in the Anglican Church, were there
Yes.
shopping, men and women,
Yes.
looking for deals. And of course, you had the plant section where people say, I come for this type of plant because you had good prices.
Yes, and fruit plants, flowering plants, equipment. We had some paintings. We had books. We had just basically everything. A lot of kids' items. We had playpens for sale, marked down.
I just learned the
Every-
term white elephant. They say something they sell everything. Yeah, I just learned that recently.
Okay,
It's like a
well-
white elephant now. I'm going to use it 3 times and it becomes mine. So I'm practicing.
Awesome.
But how do you able to get your church members to donate? Because you have a large selection.
Well, it's
I remember at one point when I thought everything was done, people came with more stuff and started hanging around.
Yes, it was just overwhelming support, and I really believe that a lot of people have things that they want to get rid of, not because they're useless, but because, we're fortunate. A lot of people have a lot of stuff in their closet, and they go away and they shop and
Make
they buy
space.
more, and they want to make space. They do the spring cleaning, and so we got overwhelming support. Too much to even store, and I'm talking about high quality items, barely used, and in a lot of cases, very new.
So tell me, will it normally be available? Any books?
Well, a lot of the romance novels, a lot of the inspirational books, it's sort of like a potluck thing. I'm not able to say, obviously the inventory, a lot of it comes in on the day. Some of it we're able to pre-package and pre-stock and lay out and all of that. But we, obviously we have our vetting to make sure that everything is of a good standard,
quality.
and, and that the books are appropriate with the image that we're presenting as persons in ministry and members of a church. But yeah, I can guarantee if you come, you'll leave with something. There's something that you will leave with. That was.
I into gadgets. They had gadgets there last time.
They had a few. They had a few gadgets. They had, so many different things: pots, utensils, lots of stuff.
So that means you need to come.
Yes.
Inviting all of the Bahamas, not particularly just Anglicans, because Anglicans come out and support each other,
Yes.
but all the Bahamians to come out on Saturday.
Yes, Saturday.
As early as 6 a.m. Because
Yes.
they'll be out there in full force, everything organized.
We'll be out there in the best force that we could be at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yes. And you all tend to have like a concierge person to guide you, say, well, go this way and go that way. These are the things you need to look out for.
Well,
we'll have salespersons.
Well, yes, we have our salespersons. Like I said, our focus was to really give persons a dignified experience. It's very shop-like. There to make sure that happened. We had our security in place to make sure that you would have thought you were in a store.
Yeah, because I said I need an extra large, and the lady came and said, okay, hold on, let me find things that you could fit. And they said, okay, this will look good on me.
Yes.
I said, you trying to sell me this, right?
Yes.
And they said, yes, this look at this on your shirt. And I said, yeah, this look good. Can I get 4 of these, please, in different colors? And they had different colors.
Yes.
And the prices were not expensive.
We're trying to.
It was like Marshalls.
Yes, we're trying. Well, we're trying to really move the stock because, like I said, we had a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff is so nice. I'm gonna confess, I bought a dress as well. You know what I mean? There was a lovely new dress. It was really, really nice, and you could get like really like a $80 dress for like $20, $10, $5, and lower playpans and stuff that would go for like $200 or whatever. Barely used, you could get those for like $30.
Nice. So young mothers and people gardening and plants.
Lots of baby
They had
clothes.
a Cubavera, like a Guyabera section. That's why I got like all colors of these Guyaberas. And say, I gotta wear this. So I'm hoping that whoever brought them the last time is out there again, so I could get stock up. Because I said buying, because Guyabera is like $80, $90, and I was getting them for $4 each, $5 each. And I said, let me get 6 of these one time. So I was very privileged that day.
And we have a lot of baby items, like a lot of baby clothing.
People still have babies?
Yeah, well,
I that age now.
And they dress well.
Wow.
They dress them well.
Nice. Remind me of the date again and the time of your event, and just invite everybody to come by.
Okay, so that's Church of the Most Holy Trinity ACW's Flea Market Sale, 12th of July, which is the coming Saturday, 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. Be there.
So if you come 2 o'clock, you'll be late. And mind you, there's to be a crowd, so come on time and get your stuff. And these really nice, very good items, right? You always find something.
Correct.
Especially if you're a plant person, that's me.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break now. Thank you very much, Ms. Mims.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Wish director there and Dr. I didn't forget her name.
That's Father Bo, Reverend Father D'Angelo Bo.
Yes.
As our rector.
And Yasmin, Dr. Yasmin.
Yeah, Dr.
Robinson.
Yasmin.
She's a cousin of mine, so I need to make sure that, extended regards to her when you see her for me, please.
Will
Guardian Radio AM, thank you very much, Miss Wims.
welcome.
We're going to take this quick commercial break, and we come back, and Aaron Green should be with us, where we talk revolution again. Are we prepared to handle the toughness if we want to change the Bahamas, right? You're always complaining, but are you prepared? Anyway, we'll be right back.
It's like a baby morning. On July 10th, 1973, the
Just sign in and have a seat, please. They'll call you in for your x-ray shortly.
That's why they call it a waiting room. You won't have that problem at Fourth Terrace Diagnostic Center or Imaging at Grosvenor. We never schedule multiple appointments, so you'll be in and out in no time. And if your initial screening reveals a concern, our radiologist can conduct an alternative screening right then and there. Call 328-8157 to schedule an appointment at Fourth Terrace Diagnostic Center or Imaging at Grosvenor today.
For fast, reliable, and impactful printing services, look no further. Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life. We stand by our quality products that is second to none. Our affordable pricing and friendly, efficient staff makes Printmasters the ultimate choice for all your printing needs. We can deliver any type of printing services, from banners to booklets to business cards. You name it, we can print it.
Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located in the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Family life is full of joy and challenges. With a Fidelity personal loan, you can handle life surprises while focusing on what matters most. From home renovations to unexpected expenses, our loans are fast, reliable solutions to any problem life throws your way. Make that move today. Call 356-7764.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
These very difficult times when crime is on the increase, you don't need to waste money on imitation security. Get the best at Wemco Security, the company you keep. Don't delay. Call today or visit their office at 32 Collins Avenue across from Columbus Primary School.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas.
Don't you know you're talking about a revolution? It sounds like a whisper. Don't you know you're talking about a revolution? It sounds like a whisper. While they're standing in the welfare lines, crying at the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting.
Welcome back to Guardian Radio AM. A number of Bahamians are frustrated. They are frustrated with the status quo and they are calling for a revolution. And I'm asking, are you prepared for the consequences of revolution? You're always talking about upturning the apple cart. But what happens when the apple cart is on the ground? What would you plan to do? You're always talking about replace the system. But who's going to replace the system, and are you prepared to work when the system is replaced? And if there are consequences, I mentioned that there has been 2 revolutions, massive revolutions, successful revolutions in the Caribbean, Cuba and Haiti. And of course, we had our quiet revolution, of course, in the Bahamas. But are we prepared for any type of fallout because we're saying this is where we want to move the Bahamas forward? You can't just complain and not be prepared to work or put your shoulder to the wheel. But Aaron, I know you want to make a statement before we start, but I want to know, what do you mean by the Bahamas is a plantation? But make your statement first and then you go back.
Okay, I just want to make a correction from the earlier show. I inadvertently call Watkins, affectionately, commonly known as Bumpy, referred to him as the white boy, but that's P. Anthony White, who used to write for The Punch. So I want to say good morning to Tuesday and Caroline White. My apologies. You all have a good morning. Yeah, that's it. And thank you to my HHT cousin who was listening and sent me the correction. And thank you. And like y'all, let's make that a practice. That used to be a thing, you know. When people watch ZNS, watch the news and listen to the radio news, they would write into the Broadcasting Corporation and highlight all of the errors, grammatical errors and mistakes that were made during the broadcast. And that's a good thing. It's a positive feedback. So thank you, cousin. I slept today because I only got a couple hours of sleep. First of all, I was reading all of those books. I got about 4 or 5 I was reading through to find excerpts. But more importantly, I was outside guarding my ganep and my mango tree.
What's happening to your ganep?
Raccoon is happening to my ganep and mango tree, man. I'm very, very upset because even putting up a fence is not going to stop a raccoon from getting in your yard, you know? And it's only the second year that my ganep tree bear Mr. Newry, and my ganep's sweet. My ganep's sweet.
Expecting a lot of ganep this year. But let's go back to our conversation, right? We are celebrating our 52nd independence from the colonial masters. Few people understand the genesis of when we cried for independence. Like, we need to become an independent state. Of course, there was a movement throughout Africa in the 60s and then a movement through the Caribbean. But an incident happened in the Bahamas that Eddie Hanno, I call him now, who may be called the father of independence, if people want to use that title, He was the one who started beating the drum. We need to become independent. An incident happened, and he made the call. Be moving forward, right? Are you aware of that incident, or will we quickly tell that story?
You tell that story because I just have an excerpt here from when it was nomination day and the PLP wasn't sure if he's going to nominate, and he sat on the wall opposite the nomination office until like 11:59. Like a minute before. That's
Yep.
it. But it's a bad man.
Yes, and that's why the then prime minister said, "Oh, we both can resign." And then he said, "You go first."
Yeah.
And he go on first, and he said, "See, you won't got to think of." But anyway, the story: the United States dropped nerve gas a little above beyond Abaco, right, in our waters, and it had impact. And the United States called United Kingdom, and got permission to drop the nerve gas. And the people of the Bahamas, right, this is like circa
40s, 50s?
No, this is like, we just became 67. There's majority rule. It's like 68, 69. But we're still under the British system.
Right, but was Maynard Senior, Clement Maynard Senior, part of the protest?
I do not know, but A.D. Hanna was deputy prime minister. So Lyndon Pinn was out of town. He was actually in England at the time, and acting prime minister was A.D. Hanna. So when they found out that the nerve gas was dropped and he was acting prime minister, he had a fit. He said, "No, we can't have Britain be negotiate on our behalf and our people getting sick. From here, we're going to demand independence."
All right,
and that's where the cry come from there.
You had a plantation.
Go ahead.
What did Mr. Hanna say? No, Britain can't give the U.S. permission to drop nerve gas on us. The state that he was that's a plantation.
Yes.
But you ain't got no. You live here. You the deputy prime minister. You deputy prime minister don't mean anything. People just reading the notes. You're the acting prime minister at the time, and nobody called you. You had no control over this, but them let you know. Oh, it really didn't have anything to do with you except that we dropped the nerve gas on you.
Let's go to the scholar,
plantation.
and then I want you to get back to definition. Kermit, connect to scholar. Go ahead, caller. Guardian Radio AM.
Yes, good morning, Aaron. Good morning, CA. Happy pre-Independence Day to you and to the wider Bahamas. This is a great place we live in. This is a place where God resides. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Amen. Amen. See, you asked a question about the plantation and whether we are prepared for it. Somebody said that with freedom comes what?
Great responsibility.
And one of the reasons for the apprenticeship system or period was to really prepare the slaves for the freedom so that they would be able to live in a world outside of the plantation. You also mentioned Haiti and the revolution that occurred there. That the Haitian Revolution started really from the French Revolution in 1789 with the watchword of freedom, liberty, and equality. And while the mulatto class saw it as their opportunity to get the freedom, liberty, and equality, the slaves in the North, they saw it as their opportunity to really get their freedom. But, after 1804, they basically were not prepared to govern, and they never, and there were a myriad of ways to it, but they were prepared for freedom, but they were really not prepared for government. And the question is, when you leave the plantation, Aaron, where do you go?
Where do you go?
Do you get a plantation of your own and set up your own plantation and engage those outside of the plantation as well? What are the plans after you get up the plantation? Is it to create another plantation? So, you have to, the other day they were talking about all of the issues in this country. We keep talking about our national development plan and whatnot. We need a plan for our country. We need a plan that every political party would buy into, so we can really build this country for Bahamians and for everyone, so that it could be truly a great place.
Thank you very much. I forget that you're a historian and you're a school teacher and taught this again. I appreciate you again. Thank you very much, Connor. Go ahead, Aaron.
I dream for people who cannot imagine anything beyond plantation, like what's outside the gates. I dream for those people, that it is that you can't imagine that there's anything beyond plantation, right? But that's an interesting snapshot because it highlights what is the truth, that the plantation is also within you, right? Like it's also, when you say a mindset, it's also systemic, right? And we've been socialized into it. Those of us living in the most beautiful and pristine of gated communities. A conversation yesterday and explaining that a political construct, right, is pervasive to the point where none of us can escape it. And even the most conscious of us, even the most woke, even the most liberated of Africans, right, are still in some way perpetuating whiteness, systems of white supremacy, systems that privilege whiteness over blackness, and because everything else is blackness. And in that conversation, a person, they got very upset and they said, "You speaking for yourself?" I said, "Man, listen, I'm not speaking for myself. I'm iterating hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of universities are now teaching. There's an ontological whiteness that we all, especially in the Bahamas, experience. And even like one of the most liberated Africans I know in the Bahamas is an ambassador for a British system. And we call him sir, that was granted to him by a British system. I think it's important for us to recognize, even me, and I come in here and I talk about revolution all the time, I'd be the first one to tell you I'm ensconced in whiteness. I went to QC, right? My whole upbringing that brought up in and through white systems of whiteness, white systems. I can't escape it. And it becomes evident. I don't try to hide it, right? The most important thing is understanding your local.
So before we go to call, and call, I do see you. Plantation economics, plantation system. We as Bahamians describe our tourism system, our economic system, our political system as being a part of the plantation.
No, I do. Pause. Stop. No. Stop. No, stop. I do. Nobody else doing that. Pause. Let's talk about it. Nobody else, the people not doing it. I do. Let's talk about it. I can, in my presentation at Future of Democracy 4, my whole presentation is about plantation model systems. If there are two people talking about it, I'm the two of them. Right?
And perhaps only you are talking about the plantation, but a plantation system is a meaning. I want to know what is the meaning of the plantation system in the Bahamas. Because the whole Caribbean claims that they are part of the plantation.
No, the whole Caribbean is still. It's not that they're claiming it. They are still. We are still being governed by plantation model systems, and it is exactly what it says. The same systems that were used to create, manage, and perpetuate, maintain plantation systems, those same systems exist today. Same systems are used to create and promulgate and perpetuate white supremacist systems. They're still operating today. That's all it means. That existed when this place was a legal plantation, they still exist. The legal systems, the principles, they still exist, right? Socially, the constructs, they still exist. For example, let's talk about a social construct. We still believe that women are property. We still believe that women belong to somebody, and they must belong to somebody to have any value. And what I mean by value is for me to consider an act to defend you, it's not my relationship to you, the woman, it's my relationship to the man that owns you that I consider, whether it's worth my time to stop and protect you. We talk about young children, our attitudes towards young girls and boys and sexual violence. We act like they are chattel, they are objects to produce value for us.
Okay, let's get the caller into the conversation as we discuss plantation, the plantation model, the Bahamas, and if we burn the plantation down, if we have the revolution, what happens next? Go ahead, caller, Guardian Radio AM, as we celebrate our 52nd anniversary of being independent. We're an independent, sovereign state We govern ourselves. Go ahead, caller. Caller Green Ones. Caller, okay, clear that line. Go ahead.
All right, don't ask the question, what happens after the revolution? The question you ask is, how do we get to the revolution? What do we have to do before we can start burning things down? And the first rule of revolution is you don't burn nothing down. You can't be burning down things until you know how to produce things. You can't start a revolution until you know how to feed people, how to clothe people, how to house, right? How to teach people. Until you know how to show people how to learn, you can't be burning nothing down. We say with great power comes great responsibility, even in the revolution. Don't ask what happens after the revolution. You ask, what do we need to do before we could start a revolution?
According to our history books, in the Caribbean and, of course, the United States, a number of former enslaved people decided to remain on the plantation. In fact, because they remain on the plantation, they're just going to bring it back to home, like Roseville. They inherited the plantation. They now have generation property based on staying on the plantation, in contrast to people who left the plantation and moved northwards. Mm-hmm. In the South, in the United States, they have, especially in the Gullah Geechee area, they have people who remained on the plantation and now own the former plantation land, right? Instead of persons who move northwards, right? There is cause that Bahamian people may have to abandon one or two of the systems, and I have no problem with that. I said abandon it for what? What is it that we are pursuing? What are we should be attracted to? And you said, what should we be doing? What should we be doing in order to get a new system?
We should be creating it.
Do we have any history of creating anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Give me some examples.
We create babies all the time. We create food all the time. We create farms all the time. That's self-defeating. There's a specific term. I just can't. It doesn't come to mind right now. Like I said, I've been garden ganaping mango trees from raccoons. First of all, the reason why some people didn't leave the plantation is because they didn't know what was on the other side of the fence, right? For some people, it's a nuance of Stockholm syndrome. The most important thing is remember this adage. Before you give a lecture on black crabs tearing each other down, remember that the pen, the barrel, the cage is not the crab's natural habitat, right? That's the first thing. So let us always carry that in our critique of Africans in occupation, because that's what we are. We're still in the Ma'afa, right? We're still living under the same plantation systems, even if they have a different name, even if they have a different face, and literally a different face, even if it's black faces perpetuating the same systems, right? Like I said, they're having this conversation with an individual that, as far as I'm concerned, it was quite an offensive. Look, there's a thing called ontological whiteness in here in the Bahamas. Most of us, right, we live with the ghosts of the ghost of dissonance, right? Because we refuse to acknowledge the ways in which even the most conscious of us, the most African of us, the most connected of us, still perpetuate whiteness and white supremacist systems, right? It's a hard road. It's the same thing. The question you asked, like, what of the Negroes, what of the enslaved that stayed, right? When the gates were open. It's nuanced.
Yes. We have like two to three callers now. Let me engage them so they can join in the conversation. Kermit, connect to the first caller there. Go ahead, caller. Guardian Radio AM. We're talking revolution, our next journey, 52 and beyond. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, how you doing? To both of you in the studio and to the wife of Bahamas. Erin, I did ask the wife concerning speaking to you, and she says she's preparing herself for such a thing as involvement in the public dialogue. She says she doesn't like the talk radio format. She would like to have some face-to-face, on-camera conversation, more like in a mature manner. And she's going to reach out to you. But I could tell
Well,
you.
say in a matured manner. That word just slipped out by accident, right? Okay, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. Because for a second there, I thought you were suggesting. Oh my goodness.
No,
let's carry on.
What happens is that she watches a lot of dialogue from, how you watch. Not like I want to say CNN and other things, but we have discussions where two people sit, CEOs and other people sit across from each other and have a 1-2 hour dialogue on things.
Right? Because one of the things that fascinates me, because this is the space I'm in, right? The ways in which we perpetuate white supremacist systems. I like being on the radio, and I like being on the radio because I see it as a disruption to what is actually a white supremacist system. See, because when you're on camera and you're sitting face to face across from each other, you have to have on your suits and you have to have on your tie and you have to look so professional. And in fact, your presentation becomes more important than what it is you actually present, right? And so then style is prioritized over substance, right? And so it doesn't mean that the people who want to do television more than radio are actively or consciously participating in white supremacy, right? But that format forces a policing of engagement, right? It forces a politeness that the oppressor depends upon to maintain the critical mass necessary for the illusion to stand. Right, so I'm saying I find it a fascinating place, and I'm glad that you raised it because it is one of those systems.
Let me ask in another context. She wants where she can also engage the audience. That's the part that she likes, talking directly to people where they have a setting. She listens to what I listen to, and she says she listened to, and this is my word, the bantering back and forth, and the more of complaints as opposed to solutions in type environment. So she always say that's your domain. She says you seem to enjoy.
I could be honest with you. Everything you saying just reinforcing my critique of it and its presentation style as a tool of a supremacist system. I'm just telling you, I find it fascinating. I could talk about it all day, but we got two more callers on the line.
Let me just make one point. Let me tell you something. And the reason I said it's important because she talked about this whole concept that she and I talk about where the Bahamas would be. I'm an older person. She's a younger person. I assume that she's going to be involved in the development of our country. And one of the things we just spoke about a couple of weeks ago was the same plantation model. And she agrees, I would say she agrees with you. Like you said, not in the agrarian concept, but in the mere fact that we don't own anything in this ownership of this economy in any form or format. We only typically provide almost the labor almost across everything else. But
see, Alan, I have all kind of callers. I need to squeeze them in, man.
But just for the on this point of on the revolution aspect of it, I think it's time for us to have a discussion in the proper context of where we're going to move to. I know we always public, but I think somehow we need to maybe put some more choices on the table as to what it is that we want to do, because we seem to just want to look at other models and copy those. And even for the fact that we talk about generality about the Caribbean countries, and we never did a comparative analysis, say, of 6, 7, 8 of them compared to what they are and how governments really do. But we always just talk on the surface of most things.
Okay, I appreciate that. Kermit, let's go to the next call. Let's go through all these people, caller. Go ahead, caller. Guardian Radio AM. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Newry.
Good morning.
Good morning, Aaron.
Morning.
Yes, Aaron, I love two words you used. You used ensconced and apropos. Is it apropos? Some people don't know the meaning of such words. And I want you to explain what the word ensconced means so that they can understand about those who may have been inheriting their slave master's land and the others who may have been inheriting their ancestors' slave master's land, plantation owner's land. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, you're saying that the slave master more likely molested the great grandmother, and you believe you're entitled to have the land.
The word ensconced.
Okay.
Aaron, as she used it, right?
Let's make it sure.
Some people inherit the land from their ancestral plantation owners, and some are slaves that remained on their slave masters.
Okay, I sort of get you, but let me say this: that those people who may have an ancestral link to the plantation owner, they were also enslaved. Right now, there's a funny space because in some instances, African people who enslaved other Africans say that they did it, or it's said that it was done because the only way to protect that African was the enslaved person was for them to be owned by somebody. If they weren't owned by anybody, then they were free to be picked up and owned by a vicious, pernicious, and nasty slave owner, right? And so some Africans bought their descendants.
Okay, some persons were granted properties through their plantation owner's will.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the progeny,
blood relatives,
right? Those blood relatives, in many instances, they were still enslaved, right? But they were enslaved on the plantation owned by the person, right? Who produced.
Okay, and through that will, that gives them right of ownership to the land, right?
If that's what the will says, yeah.
The word ensconced for the general people hearing your voice.
Well, I tell you,
can understand what you mean.
Okay, the definition of ensconced I was going to use here, right, was that, when you are dating a woman and it gets serious and you invite her over, right, and then she spend the night, and then she spent the night like once and it was great, and then by the second time she spent the night, you realize that she have a toothbrush there, she have an overnight bag there, she have 4 curlers there, right? And then the next thing you know, after spending 5 nights, you realize she even have cutlery, like she have the big pot she's make soup in living inside your cupboard. She has ensconced herself into your life. She has nestled herself in. She has rooted herself, right? Like she's rooted in, found a way to root herself in. But in that instance, right, there are instances where people are the product of, intercourse between a slave owner and an enslaved person, right?
Okay, Aaron,
yeah.
And those who try to disinherit the recipients or the bloodline relatives of the plantation owner of his properties according to law, what is their position here today? Because when you have proof that they have done such a thing, where do we go? They are not ensconced. They are inheritors by law and by documentation, right?
Okay, yeah, see, but here's the thing. At the time when this was happening, like you making a distinction between people who inherit because their name was put on the will and people who inherit because they're part of the bloodline. The question is, at the time, to what extent was that blood relation? I don't know if there's a real distinction, but your point is made. There are those who inherit because they could prove a blood connection, and there are those who inherit because there's a legal connection where their name is documented on the register or the records for that property.
Kermit, let's try to squeeze this person in, please. Go ahead, caller. Guy didn't really hear. I'm squeezing you in. Last one.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Newry. Mrs. Green, it's something you said very early, but I'll bear in mind that given to what my schoolmate was talking about doing the post-slavery era, a lot of the land given to the slaves post-slavery, that some of those families in the South had to run and leave those properties, and they had problems finding it back and getting it back. I don't know if you know that, Aaron. But we are part of the problem because we as even the leaders of the Caribbean and the sub-region, they have upheld all of the laws that their slave masters give them, even though they are antiquated, and they have not revamped them the way they should. And so all even as far as the land acts and all that. And then let's look at we didn't question anything. And so when we look at the insurrection, you're talking about insurrection and burning. You could have a successful insurrection without burning down any building. It's just that the people lack unity, and then we are suffering because what you say social engineering of operant condition and a state of learned helplessness. You see what I'm saying, Mr. Newry? So when we don't listen to one another, those things you're talking about with the British dropped nerve gas, America did the same thing with some bombs that are lodged in the Atlantic Ocean in our area, and they said irretrievably lost, which is ridiculous because if something is irretrievable, you know exactly where it is. But, I'll say this in closing. When I keep telling you guys about the Iron Mountain, Aaron, I sent it to you. I don't know if you looked at it. So sovereignty, it says specifically that if the nation don't have the defense or the military arm interior to uphold its sovereignty, it doesn't exist. I want you guys to look at the Iron Mountain for every beam, and you wouldn't be geopolitically naive.
We will continue this conversation on Friday.
But I tell you what, Mr. Newry, a plantation system, imagine that you buy land, you put a down payment, you pay a mortgage, you finish paying the mortgage, you get the papers to say you own the land, and then you get a letter from a government office to say, look here, if you don't pay this property tax, we're going to seize the land. Almost as if you don't actually quite own the land, despite having paperwork in your hand that say you own the land. That is the perpetuation of a plantation model system, sir. We living under all of them.
Sound like it's a global thing.
Some of it, and so what if it is, Mr. Newry? That does not discount that it exists both here and there, and it is real.
Perhaps the world is a big plantation.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Look at how right you continue to be, sir.
I think we live in a matrix. We just need to wake up.
No, I think some people are concerned or are very frightened of being uncomfortable and the discomfort that is required to change the world.
Yeah. This has been Guardian Radio AM. Happy Independence, Bahamas. Enjoy yourself tomorrow or today. They're going to be replaying this tomorrow again, eh? Anyway, I see you tomorrow on Friday. Have a good day.
Knocking the gong style and jamming rake and scrape until the morning light.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas.